My wealthy son sent me a Swiss watch worth $50,000 for my 63rd birthday. Feeling unworthy of such luxury, I insisted his wife wear it instead. That simple act of insecurity saved my life. When the police raided their mansion at 2 in the morning, tracking a distress signal, I realized the brutal truth. The target of that violent setup was never supposed to be her. It was supposed to be me. My name is Evelyn Carter, and at 63 years old, I have learned that silence is the loudest sound in the world. I live in a small, siding-peeled bungalow on the outskirts of Columbus, Ohio, where the most excitement we get is the weekly garbage truck rumbling down the street. Since retiring last month from my job as a cashier at the discount supermarket, my days have stretched out into an endless loop of brewing weak coffee and watching dust motes dance in the afternoon sun. I spent 40 years scanning coupons and bagging groceries, smiling until my cheeks ached, just to make sure there was food on the table for my boy after my husband passed. Now, the house feels too big, even though it is tiny. The refrigerator hums its lonely song, guarding a carton of milk and a few wilted vegetables, while the kitchen counter is a graveyard of unopened envelopes stamped with red ink. My son, Marcus, lives in a different universe. He is a big-shot investor in the tech sector now, or so he tells me during our brief, hollow phone calls. I see his life through the glowing screen of my cracked smartphone. I scroll through photos of him and his wife, Jasmine, drinking champagne on yachts or dining in restaurants where a salad costs more than my weekly electric bill. He looks happy in the pictures, his smile bright and practiced. But I barely recognize the boy who used to cling to my leg when it thundered. He has become a stranger who shares my DNA, a man who sends money sporadically, but never his time. Then came the package. It arrived on my birthday, delivered by a courier in a crisp uniform who looked out of place on my potholed driveway. I sat at the kitchen table and peeled back layers of expensive wrapping paper to reveal a box made of heavy, dark wood. Inside sat a watch. It was a Montreviera, a Swiss brand I had only ever seen in magazines left behind by customers at the store. The face was mother of pearl, surrounded by a circle of diamonds that caught the dim kitchen light and threw rainbows across the peeling wallpaper. I froze. I knew enough about retail to guess the price. This was easily $50,000, maybe more. I picked up the small card tucked beneath the velvet cushion. It read, in handwriting that belonged to an assistant rather than my son, to the best mom. Your son, $50,000. I whispered to the empty room, my fingers hovering over the cold glass face. Why now? The generosity felt violent. For the past year, Marcus had barely managed a 3-minute call once a month. He had missed Thanksgiving and claimed Christmas was too busy for travel. Now he drops a fortune on my lap. It did not sit right. It felt like an apology for a sin he had not confessed yet. Or a bribe. I slipped the heavy gold band onto my wrist. It felt heavy. It looked grotesque against my skin, which was paper-thin and liver-spotted. I was a woman who clipped coupons to save 50 cents on detergent. I was not a woman who wore the GDP of a small country on her arm. The neighbors had been whispering lately. I heard Mrs. Higgins across the fence talking to the mailman just last week. She said Marcus was moving money too fast, that people in town said his investment firm was built on smoke and mirrors. I had dismissed it as jealousy then. Now, staring at the diamonds, fear coiled in my stomach like a cold snake. I took the watch off and placed it back in its velvet coffin. I need to see him. I said aloud, the decision forming hard and fast in my chest. I need to see what is really going on. I would drive up there this weekend. I would tell him I came to thank him for the gift. But the truth was different. I needed to look into his eyes. I needed to see if the son I raised was still in there, or if he had drowned in all that money. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror. The woman staring back looked tired and grey, but her eyes were sharp. I closed the lid of the watchbox with a soft snap. I had a feeling that this watch was not just a gift. It was a key, and I was terrified of which door it was going to open. The security guard at the gatehouse held my driver's license like it was a piece of contaminated trash. He looked from my rusted sedan to the pristine, paved road beyond the iron gates, clearly debating whether to let me in. After a humiliating 5 minutes of verifying my identity with my own son, the gate finally buzzed open. I drove through, feeling like an intruder in a world where the grass was too green and the silence was too expensive. I parked on the circular driveway, my old engine sputtering a final, embarrassing cough before dying. The front door swung open before I even knocked. Jasmine stood there, dressed in white silk that looked like it cost more than my car. "Evelyn," she exclaimed, her smile tight and not reaching her eyes. You didn't say you were coming. We would have prepared something." "I wanted to surprise you," I said, clutching my purse. I tried to hug her, but she stiffened, offering a quick air kiss near my cheek that smelled of expensive perfume and annoyance. Dinner was an exercise in humiliation. The dining room was vast, echoing with the clink of silver against porcelain. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his eyes glued to his phone, his thumb scrolling incessantly. "Marcus, honey, put the phone away." Jasmine chided lightly, though her eyes were sharp. She turned to me. "So, Evelyn, how is retirement treating you?" "It is quiet," I said, trying to slice a piece of steak that looked too rare for my taste. "I was telling Mrs. Higgins the other day that the price of eggs has gone up to $4. Can you believe we are going to St. Bart's next month?" Jasmine interrupted, her voice loud and bright. "Marcus booked the private villa, the one with the infinity pool. It is going to be divine." I swallowed my bite of steak, feeling small. That sounds nice. Later. My 2 grandchildren came down in their pajamas. I reached into my bag and pulled out 2 plush bears I had bought at the discount store. "Here," I said, my voice wavering slightly. "Grandma got you these." The oldest, a boy of 8, took the bear and looked at it with confusion. "Does it do anything?" he asked. It is just for hugging," I stammered. He tossed it onto the sofa next to an iPad and a remote-controlled drone. "Thanks," he mumbled, turning back to the television. I retreated to the kitchen under the pretense of helping Jasmine clear the dishes. My heart was pounding. I reached into my purse and pulled out the heavy wooden box. "Jasmine," I said softly. She turned, raising an eyebrow. When she saw the box, her eyes widened. I opened it, revealing the diamond-encrusted watch. "Oh my God," she breathed, dropping the dirty napkin. "Is this the Montrevieira Marcus told me he sent it? It is stunning. Evelyn, it is too much," I said, my hands trembling as I held it out. "I cannot wear this. I take the bus to the grocery store. Jasmine. People will think I stole it, or I will scratch it against a counter. It makes me nervous." "Don't be silly," she said, though her fingers were already reaching for it. No, really, I insisted, pushing the box into her manicured hands. You wear it. It fits your life. It fits you. On me. It just looks sad, like I am trying to be something I am not. Please, take it. Jasmine did not fight me hard. She slipped the watch onto her wrist, admiring how the diamonds caught the recessed lighting. She immediately pulled out her phone and snapped a picture. It is beautiful. Are you sure? I mean, if you insist. Just then, Marcus walked into the kitchen. What are you two doing in here? He stopped. His eyes dropped to Jasmine's wrist. The colour drained from his face so fast I thought he was going to faint. For a second, just a split second, I saw pure, unadulterated terror in his eyes. Is that? Marcus started, his voice cracking. Your mom gave it to me. Jasmine beamed, holding up her wrist. She said she was too afraid to wear it. Isn't it gorgeous? Marcus, it looks perfect on me. Marcus swallowed hard. The terror vanished, replaced by a rigid, plastered-on smile that did not move his cheeks. Yeah, he said, his voice tight. It looks great. Really great. Honey. He looked at me then. His eyes were not warm. They were frantic. I left an hour later, citing a headache. The drive home was dark and lonely. I was just unlocking my front door when my phone buzzed in my hand. It was Marcus. Mom. His voice was breathless, hurried. I am home. Marcus. Thank you for... Are you wearing the watch? He cut me off. Tell me you are wearing the watch. I told you. Marcus. I said, kicking off my shoes. I gave it to Jasmine. It was too nice for me. She loved it. There was a silence on the other end so profound it felt like the line had been cut. It was a heavy, dead silence that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Marcus, I asked, you... His voice came out as a strangled whisper, trembling with a rage I had never heard before. You gave it to Jasmine. Yes. She is your wife. I thought you shouldn't have done that. He snapped. A sudden explosion of sound that made me flinch. You shouldn't have done that. The line went dead. I stood in my dark hallway, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone wail like a warning siren in the night. The phone rang at 14 minutes past 2 in the morning. In the dead silence of my house, the sound was not just a noise. It was a physical blow. I fumbled for the device on my nightstand, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The screen glowed with Jasmine's name. Hello, I answered, my voice thick with sleep. Evelyn. Her voice was a tiny, jagged whisper. Evelyn, you have to stay on the line. Jasmine. What is wrong? I sat up, clutching the sheets. There is someone in the house. She whimpered. I could hear the terrifying sound of shallow, suppressed breathing. We are in the closet. Me and the kids. Marcus is... I do not know where Marcus is. The alarm did not go off. They just walked in. Oh my God. I gasped. Did you call 911? Yes. They are coming. Please. I hear footsteps. The line went dead before I could say another word. I sat frozen in the dark, staring at the black screen, feeling the blood drain from my face. The next morning, the local news was frustratingly vague. The anchor, a young woman with too much hairspray, spoke in a monotone voice about an attempted property crime in the gated community of Oakwood Heights. They did not mention names. They did not mention violence. But I knew the street name they flashed on the screen. It was Marcus's street. For 2 days, my phone was silent. I paced my small living room, the carpet worn thin under my slippers. I called Marcus. Voicemail. I called Jasmine. Voicemail. Finally, on the evening of the second day, Marcus called. "Mom," he said. His voice sounded heavy, dragged down by exhaustion. "Marcus, are you all right?" Jasmine called me. She was terrified. "It is fine." "Mom," he said. But the words lacked conviction. It was just a small break-in attempt. Some junkie probably jumped the fence. "We are fine. Do not worry about it." "A junkie?" I asked, gripping the phone tighter. Jasmine said the alarm did not ring. She was hiding in the closet. Marcus, in the background, distinct and sharp. I heard the crackle of a police radio. A deep voice said something about forensics and point of entry. "Marcus, are the police still there?" He ignored my question. Instead, his tone shifted. It became sharp, almost accusatory. "Mum, listen to me. Before you gave that watch to Jasmine, did you show it to anyone? Did you tell the neighbors I blinked, confused by the pivot?" "What, no?" "I told you. I put it right in the box." "Did you take a picture of it?" He pressed, his voice rising. "Did you post anything on Facebook? Even a picture of the box, no Marcus. Why are you asking me about the watch when your family was almost? Just answer the question." He snapped. Then, catching himself, he lowered his voice. "I just need to know if anyone knew you had it. Look, I have to go." He hung up. I stood there, the silence of my kitchen wrapping around me. He had not asked if I was scared. He had not assured me the grandchildren were safe. He only cared about who knew about the watch. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. It was Jasmine. She sounded different than she had 2 nights ago. She sounded broken. "Evelyn," she sobbed. "I am here. Honey, I am here. Marcus said it was just a break-in attempt." "He is lying," Jasmine whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and fury. It was not random. "Evelyn?" The man. He came straight to the master bedroom. He did not touch the safe. He walked right past the iPad on the nightstand. "What?" He kicked the door open, and he screamed at me. Jasmine said, her breath hitching. He had a mask on. He pointed a gun at me and yelled, "Give me the new watch. Give me the watch." I felt a cold shiver run down my spine, freezing me in place. He wanted the watch, I asked, barely audible. "Yes," she cried. I threw it at him. I just threw it and screamed. He took it and ran. That was all he wanted. The police officer told me. He said this looks like a robbery by order. Someone knew exactly what to look for. I lowered the phone slowly. My mind began to race, connecting dots I did not want to see. The watch had arrived at my house less than a week ago. I had brought it to Marcus's house only 48 hours ago. Jasmine had posted that photo of the watch on her wrist just a few hours before the man broke in. Someone knew. Someone knew very fast and very accurately. I looked down at my own wrists. They were bare, wrinkled, and empty. I sat down at my small kitchen table, the darkness of the room pressing in on me. A horrific thought bloomed in my mind, cold and undeniable. If I had kept the gift, if I had been the grateful mother Marcus wanted me to be and worn that watch, the man with the gun would not have gone to the mansion in Oakwood Heights. He would have come here. He would have kicked down my flimsy wooden door. He would have found an old woman living alone, with no security cameras and no alarm system. I stared at the empty chair across from me. I realized with a sick, sinking feeling that the intruder going to Marcus's house was a mistake. I was the intended target, and my son was not asking if I was safe because he was worried about me. He was asking because he was trying to figure out how his plan had gone so terribly wrong. I did not ask Marcus for the truth. I knew my son well enough to know that if I asked him a direct question, he would construct a labyrinth of lies so complex I would never find my way out. Instead, I put on my beige raincoat, took the bus to the Eastern Town Centre, and walked into the authorized retailer for Monteviera watches. The store was intimidating. It smelled of leather and cold air conditioning. The glass cases were so clean, they looked invisible. I approached the counter, clutching the warranty card Marcus had left in the box. A young man in a sharp suit looked up, his eyes scanning my worn shoes before landing on my face. "Can I help you?" "Ma'am?" he asked, his tone polite but dismissive. "My son bought me a watch," I said, sliding the card across the glass. I am an old woman, and I am afraid I do not understand how to work it. He said something about insurance. The clerk took the card and typed the serial number into his tablet. His eyebrows shot up. "Ah, the Vieira Elite series," he said, his demeanor instantly changing to one of respect. "This is a magnificent piece. Your son has excellent taste. And yes, this model comes with the Sentinel package." "Sentinel?" I asked, leaning in. "Is that?" "Good. It is the best," he said enthusiastically. "These watches have an embedded microchip. It connects to a global network. You can track its location in real time through our app. And the insurance is top tier." He swiped the screen and turned it toward me. "See here, it covers accidental damage and loss. But this specific policy includes the violent theft clause, because these watches are often targeted. If the watch is taken from the owner by force, a mugging, or home invasion, the payout is not just the value of the watch. It is double. 100% markup for trauma compensation." The words hit me like a physical slap. Double. If the watch cost $50,000, a violent robbery meant the policyholder got $100,000. That is very generous, I managed to say, my throat dry. "And the policy is in my name." I assume the clerk frowned, scrolling down. "Actually, no. The beneficiary is listed as a corporate entity, Nexus Capital. And the primary contact is Marcus Carter. Nexus Capital." I repeated. I had never heard of it. It sounded like one of those shell companies people set up to hide things. "Thank you," I said, pulling the card back. "You have been very helpful." I walked out of the store, my legs feeling heavy. I needed to sit down. I found a coffee shop 2 doors down, ordered a black tea, and sat in the corner. I pulled out my old smartphone. My fingers were shaking, not from age, but from rage. I called over a waitress, a young girl with bright pink hair. "Excuse me, dear," I said, putting on my most helpless smile. "My son set up this app for me, but I cannot seem to log in. I have the email and password written here on this invoice. Could you help me?" "Sure thing. Sweetie," she said, taking the phone. She downloaded the black icon, typed in the credentials from the paper I had swiped from the box, and waited. "Okay, you are in. It is asking for location access. I will just hit allow." She handed the phone back to me. "There you go. It shows you where the watch is." I looked at the screen. A detailed map of Columbus appeared. A small, pulsing blue dot sat blinking on the grid. I knew exactly where Marcus lived. His house was in the northern suburbs, a sprawling estate surrounded by trees. But the blue dot was not there. The dot was hovering over a building in the downtown district, on 4th Street. I zoomed in. It was the Skyline Lofts, a building known for short-term corporate rentals and transitional housing for businessmen. That is strange, I whispered to myself. Jasmine had told me Marcus was staying late at the office to deal with the fallout of the robbery. She said he was sleeping on the couch in his firm's headquarters. But the watch that was supposedly stolen by a random drug addict, was sitting in a rental apartment 3 miles from his office. I stared at that pulsing blue dot. It was not just a location. It was evidence. The robbery was not random. The thief had not taken the watch to a pawn shop or a fence. They had taken it to a safe house. The pieces clicked together with terrifying clarity. The high-value insurance policy, the double payout for violence, the tracking chip, the location. Marcus had not given me a gift. He had put a target on my wrist. He had insured it. And then he or someone he hired had come to collect. The only reason I was sitting here in this coffee shop, sipping tea instead of lying in a hospital bed or a morgue, was because of a moment of insecurity. I had given the watch to Jasmine. I had ruined his perfect plan. And now, my daughter-in-law was the one living in fear, while the watch sat safely in an apartment my son likely paid for. I sat in the silence of my kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound keeping me company. The air felt heavy, suffocating, as if the walls were closing in to crush the realization that was blooming in my mind. I was not just a mother anymore. I was a liability. I was an asset to be liquidated. My mind drifted back, unbidden, to 20 years ago. Marcus was 16. The police had brought him home in the back of a cruiser, caught shoplifting brand new sneakers from the mall. I remembered the look on his face. It was not fear. It was calculation. He had looked at the officer, then at me, and tears had instantly filled his eyes. Mom, I didn't do it. He had sobbed, his voice cracking perfectly. The other guys, they shoved them in my bag. I was scared to say no. I had believed him. I had begged the officer to let him off with a warning. I had paid the store owner double the price of the shoes to drop the charges. I told myself he was just a boy, influenced by bad crowds. But deep down, I remembered the smirk I saw when the police car finally drove away. I had spent my life sweeping the broken glass from his path, ensuring he never had to walk on it. Had I created this? Had I watered the seeds of a monster with my own blind forgiveness? I thought about the conversation we had 6 months ago. Marcus had come over for a rare visit, carrying a folder of documents. It is just a life insurance policy. Mom, he had said, sliding the papers across this very table. I want to make sure you are covered. If anything happens, I want to be able to give you the best funeral, the best care. I had looked at the sum, $1 million. It made my stomach churn. I refused to sign it, telling him it felt like betting against my own life. He had looked annoyed, not relieved that his mother planned to stick around. You are being irrational, he had muttered, shoving the papers back into his briefcase. Now, the picture was complete. I made a few calls that afternoon. I called a woman I used to work with whose daughter now worked as a receptionist at a rival investment firm. It took some coaxing, some feigned ignorance. But the gossip flowed eventually. Marcus was not the golden boy of the city. He was drowning. He had leveraged everything on a cryptocurrency venture that collapsed 3 months ago. He owed money to banks. And worse, he owed money to private lenders who did not use lawyers to collect their debts. The plan unfolded in my mind like a movie script. Step 1. Buy the mother a watch with a violent theft insurance clause. Step 2. Ensure the mother is wearing it alone in a house with no security. Step 3. Hire a thug to stage a robbery. If I had been wearing that watch, the intruder would have come here. He would have kicked in my door. He would have beaten a 63-year-old woman to trigger the double payout clause. And if I had died from the stress or the violence, well, that would have just cleared the path for the other insurance policies he likely took out without my signature. I was never meant to survive the gift. Jasmine was an accident. The robber going to the mansion was a navigational error in a desperate plan. Marcus did not care about the watch. He cared about the payout. He cared that his solution to bankruptcy was currently walking around on his wife's wrist instead of being brutally ripped from mine. A coldness settled over me, freezing the tears that threatened to fall. The grief of betrayal was still there, vast and deep, but it was being paved over by something harder: survival. I looked at the counter where a piece of stationery sat. It was a letter I had started writing the day the package arrived. To my wonderful son. It began, "Thank you for making me feel like a queen." I stood up. My legs felt steady now. I walked over to the counter and picked up the paper. I read the words one last time. They sounded like they were written by a ghost, a foolish old woman who no longer existed. You really almost killed me," I whispered to the empty room. I tore the paper in half, then in quarters. The sound of the ripping paper was sharp and decisive. I walked to the trash can and let the pieces flutter down into the darkness among the coffee grounds and eggshells. I was done being the mother who forgave. I was done being the victim. If Marcus wanted to play games with lives, he was about to learn that he had underestimated the player he sat across the table from. I was not going to run. I was going to rewrite the rules. The next morning, I walked into the Legal Aid Society office downtown. It was a cramped room that smelled of stale coffee and desperation, a far cry from the marble-floored firm Marcus likely kept on retainer. I sat across from a young lawyer named Mr. Sterling. He looked tired. His tie loosened, and he listened to my story with the polite skepticism of a man who heard conspiracy theories all day long. "Mrs. Carter," he said, rubbing his temples. "It sounds stressful, but proving intent based on an insurance policy is difficult. Look at the dates," I said, sliding the printed screenshots of the location log and the policy details I had dug up across his scratched desk. He took out the policy 3 days before he mailed the watch. The policy specifically pays out double for violent robbery. And look at where the watch is now. It is not in a pawn shop. It is in a corporate apartment. He picked up the papers. As he read, his posture stiffened. The skepticism drained from his face, replaced by a sharp, professional focus. "If this is true," he said slowly, "this isn't just insurance fraud. If he solicited someone to rob you, to specifically use violence to trigger a clause, we are looking at conspiracy to commit assault, maybe even attempted murder. Depending on the instructions given to the assailant, I want to stop him," I said, my voice steady. "But I need to know I am right." "We need evidence," Sterling said, leaning forward. "Hard evidence, recordings, texts. You need to keep playing the part. Mrs. Carter. You need to be the confused, Scared mother. Let him feel safe. Let him talk. I nodded. I left the office with a digital recorder in my purse and a cold stone in my heart. My next stop was a laundromat on the edge of town, a place with fluorescent lights and the rhythmic thumping of washing machines. I texted Jasmine to meet me there. I told her it was the only place I felt safe, the only place we wouldn't be overheard. She arrived 10 minutes late, wearing oversized sunglasses and a trench coat, looking like a celebrity trying to hide from the paparazzi. She sat on the orange plastic chair next to me, looking around nervously. "Evelyn, why are we here?" she whispered. "Marcus is going crazy. He keeps asking why you are not home." "Jasmine," I said, turning to face her. I did not hold her hand. I needed her to focus. I know about the insurance. I know about the violent theft clause. I know Marcus is broke. She flinched, pulling back as if I had slapped her. I don't know what you are talking about." She stammered. "Stop it," I said sharply. "The man who broke into your house was supposed to break into mine. He was supposed to attack me. Jasmine." Marcus set it up. "Now, look me in the eye and tell me. Did you know?" Jasmine's lip trembled. She looked down at her hands, which were twisting the strap of her purse. Tears began to cut tracks through her foundation. "He told me," she started, her voice breaking. "He told me the watch was going to save us. He said, 'Just wear it, Jazz, and if anything happens, we are covered.' I thought he meant we would pawn it later, or maybe report it lost. I didn't know he meant a man with a gun. He is in debt to dangerous people," I said. "And he was willing to trade my safety, or yours, to pay them off." "What do we do?" She sobbed quietly. "He is my husband. He is the father of my children. And that is why you are going to help me put him away before he drags you down with him." I said, "If you are complicit, Jasmine, you lose the kids. They go to foster care. Is that what you want?" "No," she gasped. "No. Please." "Then we make a deal," I said, laying out the terms I had formulated on the bus ride over. "You help me and the lawyer. You give us access to his emails. You let us see the security logs. You keep wearing that watch and pretending you are just a traumatized victim. You do exactly what I say, and I will testify that you were a pawn, not a partner. I will save you and the grandchildren." She looked at me, her eyes wide and terrified. For the first time, she wasn't looking at a poor, old woman. She was looking at her only lifeline. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I will do it." "Good," I said. "Keep the watch on. Let the tracker signal stay active. It is the bait now. But this time, we are the ones holding the fishing rod." I walked out of the laundromat into the biting chill of the afternoon. Light snow was beginning to fall, dusting the grey pavement. My hands were shaking in my pockets, not from the cold, but from the adrenaline of the hunt. I was done being the prey. For 63 years, I had been soft. I had been kind. Today, as I walked toward the bus stop, I felt something new hardening inside my chest. I was going to take my son down, and I was going to use his own greed to do it. My lawyer, Mr. Sterling, arranged a meeting with Detective Vance, a weary man with grey stubble who specialized in insurance fraud. We met in a diner booth that smelled of grease and lemon cleaner. At first, Vance barely looked at the file, stirring his black coffee with a plastic spoon, clearly thinking this was just a family dispute gone wrong. "Look at the premium payments," Detective, I said, sliding the paper across the laminate table. Look at who pays them, and look at the beneficiary. Vance picked up the sheet. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the figures. This policy covers violent theft at double the market value, he muttered. And the policyholder is Nexus Capital. That is your son's firm. Yes, I said. And here are the login logs for the tracking app provided by the watch company. Mr. Sterling handed over the second sheet. The user logged in 12 times between midnight and 2 in the morning on the night of the break-in. Sterling said, he was tracking the watch in real time while his wife was hiding in the closet. Vance stopped stirring his coffee. He looked up at me, the boredom gone, replaced by the sharp, predatory look of a hunter catching a scent. We will open a preliminary inquiry, he said. While the police quietly subpoenaed the full digital records, Marcus was unraveling. I could hear it in his voice during our daily phone calls. He sounded jagged, like a wire pulled too tight. How are you feeling today? Mum, he asked one Tuesday afternoon. I sat in my armchair, the recorder taping every breath. Oh, you know, I said, letting my voice trail off into a weak wheeze. I have been having these dizzy spells. The doctor says it might be my heart. I just feel so fragile. That is too bad, Marcus said. But I heard the distraction in his tone. He was not worried about my heart. He was calculating how much time he had left. Do you need anything? Money, groceries? No, dear. I just wish I could help you. You sound stressed. Is work okay? Work is fine, he snapped, too quickly. Then, softer. It is just market volatility. Listen, Mum, if anyone calls you about the watch or insurance, you just tell them to talk to me. Okay. You get confused easily. Okay. Marcus, I whispered. I will tell them to talk to my smart boy. Meanwhile, Jasmine was playing her part perfectly. That evening, she recorded a conversation in their kitchen. I listened to the file later with Mr. Sterling. Marcus, I can't wear it anymore. Jasmine's voice trembled on the tape. I am terrified. That man, he wanted the watch. I want to give it back to Evelyn. There was a crash, like a fist hitting a counter. You are not giving it back, Marcus shouted. It is a gift. It is disrespectful to give it back, but it is dangerous. It is insured. Jasmine. God, why are you so difficult? Marcus's voice dropped to a sinister hiss. You keep that watch on your wrist. Mom needs to see you wearing it. It makes her happy. Do you want to break an old woman's heart? But what if he comes back? He won't come back if you just do what you are told. Marcus yelled. Just one stroke of bad luck, one bad night, and everything could be solved. Do not ruin this for me. Detective Vance listened to the recording and nodded. He is desperate. But everything could be solved is vague. We need him to be specific. We need him to admit the scheme. They set the trap the next day. An undercover officer, posing as a corrupt insurance adjuster named Frank, contacted Marcus through a burner number found in his frantic call logs. The text was simple. I know about the Nexus policy. I can help expedite the claim for a fee. Let's talk optimization. I sat in my dark kitchen, staring at my phone, waiting for the update. It came at 9 in the evening. Mr. Sterling texted me. He took the bait. He agreed to meet Frank at the Velvet Lounge tomorrow night. I put the phone down. My hands were cold. Tomorrow night. My son would walk into a bar, thinking he was finding an accomplice to help him cash in on his mother's potential misfortune. Instead, he would be walking into the end of his life as a free man. I looked at the empty space on the wall where his graduation photo used to hang. I had taken it down yesterday. I realized that the boy in that picture had died a long time ago, replaced by a stranger who looked at his mother and saw only a paycheck. Tomorrow, I would watch that stranger fall. I later listened to the audio recording of that night at the Velvet Lounge, and the clarity of it chilled me to the bone. The background noise was a low hum of jazz and clinking crystal, a sophisticated soundtrack to a confession of monstrosity. My lawyer played it for me, and I could hear the ice rattling in Marcus's glass. He was drinking expensive scotch, paid for with money he did not have, sitting across from a man he thought was a corrupt insurance broker, but was actually Detective Vance's best undercover officer. The policy is tight. The officer, posing as Frank, said smoothly on the tape. But the payout requires specific conditions. You know that. Right, I know. Marcus slurred slightly, the alcohol loosening his tongue. I set it up perfectly. It was supposed to be simple. Monteviera pays out double for violent theft, 200%. Do you know what that would do for my liquidity? It would have been clean. So what went wrong? Frank asked, his voice low and inviting. My mother. Marcus spat the word out like it was poison. She got sentimental. I bought it for her. I insured it in my name. All she had to do was wear the damn thing and sit in her house. She lives in the middle of nowhere. No cameras, no guards. It would have been quick. But she had to go and give it to my wife. Can you believe that she gave the target to my wife? I sat in my living room with the television muttering in the background, staring at the wall. My hands were gripping my phone so hard my knuckles were white. I was waiting for the signal from Mr. Sterling. But part of me, the weak and foolish mother part, was praying for silence. I was torn between the desperate need to stop him and the terrifying reality of seeing my only child in handcuffs. Every minute that ticked by felt like a physical weight pressing on my chest. On the recording, Marcus continued, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. If the item is taken from the wrist of the insured party or their direct family member during an assault, the company cannot deny the claim. I just need one more chance to get it right. We can arrange that, Frank said. After the meeting, Marcus stumbled out into the cold night. He was drunk on liquor and false hope. My phone lit up with a screenshot forwarded by Jasmine. It was a text Marcus had just sent her. Everything is almost fixed. Just hold on. I am going to take care of us. It made me nauseous. He thought he was a hero saving his family, not a predator selling them out. The detective decided it was time to close the net. They needed one final reaction to prove that Marcus was not just looking for insurance fraud, but specifically violent robbery. At 10 o'clock that night, Jasmine made the call we had rehearsed. I listened in on the three-way line, holding my breath. Marcus Jasmine sounded breathless, her acting impeccable. Marcus, you won't believe it. I got a call from an unknown number, a collector. He saw the photo on Facebook. He offered to buy the watch right now. Cash. He offered $150,000. He wants to meet in the Walmart parking lot in 20 minutes. There was a silence on the line. A normal person in debt would have jumped at the chance to sell the watch for triple its value legally. No, Marcus screamed, his voice cracking with panic. No, you cannot go, but Marcus, Jasmine cried. It solves the debt. It is cash. I am going to go. Do not you dare. Marcus roared, the desperation tearing through his composure. You stupid. You do not understand anything. You cannot sell it. It has to be taken. The whole plan is wrapped in it. If you sell it, I get nothing. If you ruin this for me again, I swear to God. Jasmine. He hung up, leaving the airwaves vibrating with his rage. That was it. He had refused a legal sale because it did not trigger the insurance payout. He had admitted the plan required the theft. I stood up and walked to the small bathroom off the kitchen. The face in the mirror looked older than 63. The lines around my mouth were deep, etched by years of smiling when I wanted to scream, of forgiving when I should have punished. I washed my hands with cold water, scrubbing them as if I could wash away the DNA I shared with him. The police were moving in. The warrant was being signed. This time I won't save you anymore. Marcus. I whispered to my reflection, the English words feeling too soft for the steel in my heart. This time, you're on your own. I told the detective I needed 10 minutes. I told him that before he put my son in handcuffs. I needed to look Marcus in the eye and hear the truth without the filter of a lawyer or a jail cell. I needed to know that the boy I raised was truly gone. Marcus arrived at 3 p.m. The sky was a bruised purple, dumping a relentless, freezing rain that battered the aluminum siding of my house. He looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled. His eyes were rimmed with red. But he walked into my kitchen with the same arrogant stride he had developed the year he made his first million. He did not hug me. He sat down at the small formica table and looked around with disdain, likely calculating how much this property would fetch on the market to cover his margin calls. I do not have much time. Mom, he said, tapping his fingers on the table. I assumed, since you called so urgently, you were finally ready to talk about, leveraging the equity in this place. To help me out. I stood by the counter and poured 2 mugs of black coffee. My hands were steady. I reached into the pocket of my apron, turned on the small digital recorder, and slid it beneath the folded paper napkin I placed in front of him. Here, I said, sitting opposite him. Drink. He took a sip, grimacing. It is weak. Look, Mom, I need 50,000 by Friday. If we sell the house, if I had worn the watch. Marcus. I interrupted him, my voice soft but clear. If I had worn the watch that night, instead of giving it to Jasmine, what would have happened? He froze. The mug stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down slowly. Why are you bringing that up again? He asked, avoiding my eyes. It was a robbery. A random robbery. You were lucky. Was I asked. Because I went to the store. Marcus. I know about the insurance. I know about the clause that pays double for violent theft. I know the policy is in your name. He looked up then, his face twisting into a sneer I barely recognized. You went to the store. Since when do you investigate anything? You are supposed to be watching game shows and knitting. Mum, I also know about the apartment downtown. I continued, relentless. I know you tracked the watch's location 12 times while your wife was hiding in a closet. And I know about the meeting at the Velvet Lounge last night. Marcus stood up, his chair scraping violently against the linoleum. His face flushed a deep, ugly crimson. You have been spying on me, he hissed. After everything I do for you, I bought you a $50,000 watch. You bought yourself a payout. I shot back, remaining seated. You sent a man to my house. Marcus, you sent a man with a gun to attack your own mother. You wanted me to get hurt. Maybe you even wanted me to die so you could collect the life insurance too. Tell me I am wrong. You do not understand business, he shouted, pacing the small kitchen like a caged animal. I was drowning. I am drowning. I needed liquidity. It was a victimless crime. Victimless, I asked, my voice rising. Jasmine was terrified. My grandchildren were in that house. I would have been beaten. You ruin everything, he screamed, slamming his fist onto the counter, making the coffee mugs jump. It was a perfect plan, simple, clean. But you had to go and be noble and give it away. You just had to give it to her, so it matters who the victim is, I asked, cold and sharp. Yes, he roared, the veins in his neck bulging. Yes, you have lived your life. You are old. It didn't matter if it was you. You were supposed to be the one there, not my wife and kids. It should have been you. The sentence hung in the air, vibrating in the small space between the refrigerator and the stove. It was the absolute truth, stripped of all lies and pretenses. He had just confessed that my life was an expendable currency to him. I looked at him. For 30 years? I had made excuses for him. I had paid his debts. I had hidden his sins. I had loved him with a blindness that I thought was a virtue. But in that second, the love evaporated. It did not turn into hate. It turned into ash. I reached out and pulled the napkin back, revealing the small black device with its red light glowing steady and bright. Marcus stared at it. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The colour drained from his face, leaving him grey and ghostly. I know everything. Marcus, I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. I know about the debts. I know about the fraud. I have given the recordings to the lawyer. I have given the logs to the detective. And this was the last thing they needed. Mom, he whispered, his voice trembling, reverting suddenly to the scared teenager who had stolen sneakers. Mom, what did you do? I did what a mother should have done a long time ago, I said, standing up. I stopped protecting you from yourself, from the distance, growing louder with every second. The wail of sirens cut through the sound of the rain. Marcus looked toward the window, panic flooding his eyes. He looked back at me, waiting for me to tell him to run, waiting for me to tell him I would fix it. No, I said, answering the question he had not asked. Not this time. He stood frozen in the center of the kitchen, trapped between the sink and the table. As the blue and red lights began to flash against the wet window pane, signaling the end of his game. The heavy thud of fists against the front door shattered the silence of the kitchen. Before Marcus could move, the door swung open, revealing Detective Vance and 2 uniformed officers standing in the driving rain. They did not wait for an invitation. They stepped into the small hallway, bringing the smell of wet pavement and authority with them. Marcus Carter, Vance said, his voice flat and unimpressed. You are under arrest for insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit assault, and reckless endangerment. Marcus stumbled back against the refrigerator, knocking a magnet to the floor. This is a mistake. You cannot arrest me. This is a family dispute. My mother is senile. He looked wildly around the room, his eyes landing on the figure standing behind the officers. Jasmine stepped into the kitchen. She was pale, shaking slightly, but she walked past her husband and stood next to me. She did not look at him. She reached out and took my hand. Jasmine Marcus gasped, the betrayal cutting through his panic. You are with them. With her, I did this for us. I did this for the family. You did this for yourself. Jasmine whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the rain pounding on the roof. The officers moved forward, pulling Marcus's hands behind his back. The click of the handcuffs was loud and final. Marcus struggled, twisting his body to look at me one last time. His face was a mask of disbelief and tears. "Mom," he choked out. "Do you really want this? Do you really want to see your only son in prison?" I looked at him. I looked at the man who had once been the boy I carried on my hip. I felt a phantom pain in my chest, the ache of a mother losing a child. But it was dull compared to the sharp clarity of survival. I do not want it. Marcus, I said slowly, holding his gaze. But I accept it. It is the only way to make sure the rest of us survive you. Vance stepped forward and placed a plastic evidence bag on the table. Inside was the Montreviera watch. Beside it, he laid out the printouts of the location logs and the transcript of the recording I had just made. "We have you on tape. Mr. Carter," Vance said. "We have you admitting that you intended for your mother to be the victim of a violent assault to trigger a double indemnity clause. It is over." Marcus slumped. The fight went out of him as the reality of the evidence crushed him. The officers led him out into the rain, his expensive Italian loafers splashing through the mud of my front yard. I watched him go, feeling a strange lightness, as if a heavy stone I had been carrying for 30 years had finally been set down. The arraignment the next morning was brief. Marcus's lawyer, a slick man who looked like he hadn't slept, tried to paint Marcus as a desperate businessman driven to madness by debt. He argued for bail. But then the prosecutor played the audio from my kitchen. Marcus's voice rang out through the courtroom. "You were supposed to be the one there, not my wife and kids. It should have been you." The judge's face hardened. He denied bail immediately, citing Marcus as a danger to his family and a flight risk. Marcus was led away in an orange jumpsuit that clashed with his pale skin. He did not look back. When I walked out of the courthouse, a small group of reporters was waiting. The story of the wealthy son trying to stage a robbery on his mother had leaked. A microphone was thrust in my face. "Mrs. Carter, do you feel like a victim today?" a reporter asked. I adjusted my coat and looked directly into the camera. "I am old," I said, my voice steady. "But I am awake now. I want people to know that unconditional kindness can kill you, sometimes. Being a good mother means letting the law do the parenting you were too afraid to do yourself. Today, I chose my life. That evening, I returned to my quiet house. The rain had stopped. The kitchen was still small. The appliances were still old. But the air felt different. It was clean. I walked to the drawer where I kept my odds and ends and pulled out the velvet watch box. It was empty. The watch was in an evidence locker downtown, and I hoped I never saw it again. I snapped the lid shut. The sound was sharp and satisfying. It was the sound of a book closing. I sat by the window and checked my phone. There was a voicemail from Jasmine. I pressed play. "Mom." Her voice was teary but relieved. "We are safe. I changed the locks. The kids are asleep. Thank you. Thank you for saving us." I heard the faint laughter of my grandchildren in the background of the message. I smiled, looking out at the dark street. For the first time in 63 years, I did not feel like the prey. I was the one who had ended the hunt. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It was a difficult journey, but I'm glad I could share it with you all. I'd love to know where you guys are tuning in from. So please drop a comment down below and let's chat. If you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Grandma's Family Diary, hit that like button, and smash the hype button to help this video get recommended to more people who might need to hear it. Stay safe out there.